Oh, A1, you crack me up, man. All right, let's get this rolling here. Let's kind of take a look at what was happening. You know, for a minute there, I almost jumped. I was really close to jumping into JNUG, but I sat on my hands. Thought maybe it was going to pop when I saw the initial headline of the China sub. You know, China capturing one of our subs. I'm thinking, holy shit, they captured one of our subs. I was thinking that could be huge, right? But it turned out to be a little drone sub. So, I mean, you know, which somebody said in the chat room probably was made in China. So they're just reclaiming their stuff. Oh, funny. So the drone thing, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. But that almost got me to take gold. I mean, something like that, a big event, where some tensions would really flare up, like if it really was a big sub with, some of our guys in it. Yeah, that would be something you immediately would go and look to get into gold or, and some safety type trades. But that turned out to be just a small little nothing. So, pulled back, NASDAQ pulled back to the 8 EMA. Still consolidating, not a big breakdown. I think that the market is kind of looking a little tired, but it's just consolidating. And I think, we're probably going to get, we don't have much left this year. I think we're probably going to get that Santa Claus rally. But I think after the first of the year, I think a lot of these names that have run, I think we're probably going to get a pullback. And I've been saying that, but I'm starting to get that feel more and more. There's a lot of bullishness out there, right? There's a lot of people that seem to be all on one side of the boat, and that starts to get a little sketchy, a little scary for me. So, but hopefully we get that Santa Claus rally. We get a nice little run into the end of the year. I think you're going to see some positioning into some beaten up sectors. We've been talking about that with the healthcare. I think some of the low dollar stocks that have been really beaten up. People could be taking the tax loss selling, but then looking to get back in. KOPN pulled back today, and I am watching KOPN and Iman in that space. AR, VR, virtual reality stuff. I think that's a good space. I think it could be a good space to be in for next year. But I would like to get KOPN as close to 2 as possible. We'll look at that in a minute. But so, NASDAQ, a little bit of a pullback, but still looking fairly decent, right? Holding on to that 8 EMA. Let's just talk about gold real quick since we're here. We talked about the fact that potentially we could have a little snapback play, or we could work our way back into the Bollinger Band and just kind of go sideways and maybe build out another bear flag, right? We'll see what happens. We didn't get a real big snapback, even with that thing out of China, right? We got a little bit of a bounce, and then it just kind of, it's working sideways, right? It's still below the 8 EMA, and until we take this out with some real conviction, this trend line, the 8 EMA, some real volume, I still think we have to kind of stay on the sidelines. And look, GDXJ, even though gold had a little bit of a bounce today, GDXJ didn't really do anything. GDX, right, just kind of working its way back into the Bollinger Band. Let's take a look at JNUG and Nugget, right, completely out of the lower Bollinger Band. Where's JNUG? Right there. Out of the lower Bollinger Band, but looks like it kind of working its way back in. So no big snapback yet. But the dollar was pulling back a little bit today too. Right? Had a little bit of a pullback, but again, it kind of looks like it's just going to work its way back into the Bollinger Band as opposed to, you know, have this snapback into the Bollinger Band. So got to keep an eye on that correlation, right? We got to keep an eye on the dollar. USO, actually, oil held up fairly good, but still in a short-term downtrend, right? After piercing the upper Bollinger Band. Working right back up into this trend line. We'll see if this acts as resistance. That was a big, we had another big rig count build today, right? Lately we've had a lot of, last few weeks, we've had some big adds to the rig count. So I think that gets a little bit concerning because all these rigs start coming online, then you're just producing more oil. And then if we don't have the demand, that I think that becomes a problem. Let's see here. So oil just kind of a little nothing day. I mean, it did manage to reclaim the 8 EMA. Let's see if it can take out this. Let's see if it can take out this trend line next week. All right, so let me go back up here to the IBB. So, you know, tried to take out the trend line, right? Bumped up into this trend line. Tried to take out the 200-day moving average. Has a lot of resistance here. We'll see what happens next week, if we can potentially take that out or not. But, you know, not a bad week for the IBB, really. Kind of consolidating. We'll see what happens next week. We'll see if we can take out that trend line now that we've filled this gap on the daily. It'd be nice to have the IBB start to pop. You know, there's a lot of beaten down names there. BMY, oil looks like a potential head and shoulders to me. Well, let me go back to that. You're seeing a head and shoulders on the, let's look at that. Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. So you got a shoulder here, potential head here, potential shoulder there. Is that what you're seeing? I could see that. We'll see what happens with oil next week. All right. I mean, I was looking at this potential double top, right? But I see what you're saying about that. Yeah, and another one in the shorter time frame too. Okay, so I see what you're saying. So right here, head, shoulder, and maybe a shoulder there. I got you. In the shorter, on a shorter time frame. Yeah, that's possible. I mean, you could be forming the shoulder right here. I get what you're saying. All right, so IBB, just to go back to that. IBB, I think it was fairly constructive action this week. It'd be nice to have it break over, you know, the key level. I mean, we want to get above all of these moving averages, right? We want to break above 275, 280 with some conviction. And I think then we can get another pop and go up and test this $300 area once more, which has acted as resistance fairly consistently. And it would be good for us to go back up there and test it. Maybe this time go test it, consolidate right there, and then finally break above it. Let's see, IWM, right? I mean, consolidating, holding on to this 8 EMA, barely held on to it today, but holding on to the 8 EMA, consolidating, maybe building up a little bit of energy before we get the end of year rally in the IWM. Let's take a look at, looks like IYT, we had a little bit of a pullback in transportation, closed below the 8 EMA after piercing the upper Bollinger Band. This has been a pretty strong sector you know, looking for it to pull back into this 163 area of 21 EMA, see if it holds as support there. But still, I mean, nothing to make us say, geez, you know, the party's over, time to get out. It's just consolidating. This is a healthy pullback. Labu actually closed right on top of the 200-day moving average. So, you know, if by chance the IBB next week does take out that trend line, could be a trade there somewhere in Labu. So keep that on your radar. Let's go back up here to financials, which, you know, we've been talking about as potential breakup or breakdown, but really constructive flag here, right? Just working its way back into the Bollinger Band. Healthy action. But if they do break down, you know, so we had that candle out of the lower Bollinger Band, but didn't get any kind of snapback, right? So for right now, it appears as though we're kind of building out another bear flag, potentially break lower. We've worked our way back into that Bollinger Band. We'll see what happens over the next week or so. Let's take a look at the SMH, which was not, I mean, the SMH pulled back a bit today, but it held the 8 EMA and it held this area of price. It held 72, right? It basically held 72 as price support. So again, it's fairly healthy action, right? This wasn't a big dramatic sell-off like this candle we had back here. Had a little bit of a pullback, but managed to hold on to that 8 EMA, managed to hold on to 72 bucks. So SMH still looks fairly decent. S&P 500, same thing. I mean, all of these look basically the same. We're working our way back into the Bollinger Band and consolidating, which is good. All right, let's take a look at TBT. You know, it's right at this area of potential price resistance, the TBT. There's a lot of action in this thing lately, but consolidating and, you know, looking like it wants to go higher. I mean, this is a good place for it to try and consolidate a bit. But I think it's worth keeping an eye on TBT for a potential move higher as well. We talked about volatility. There still isn't any, and we're not going to see any unless we get a big sell-off. And it's not looking like that's going to happen anytime soon. At least we're not seeing any signs of it yet, right? Doesn't mean it can't come. Just means that we're not seeing any signs of it right now. And as long as we're not seeing any signs of it right now, there's no point in trying to play these until we see some fear, right? Where's the VIX? VIX is back down, heading back down to 11, right? It's having a little bit of difficulty here at this trend line. It's got all these moving averages overhead to contend with. There's just nothing there in volatility right now. All right, aerospace and defense, slow grind lower, now below the 8 EMA, and that 8 EMA continues to act as resistance, right? I mean, every time it seems to come up here and try to test it, it's acting as resistance. So slow drift down, you know, maybe we find support here at about 62 bucks, right about where the 50 EMA is. Or we come down and fill this gap, and then we've got another gap to fill down here. This isn't a big high volume sell-off in aerospace and defense. It's just a steady grind lower. So, you know, this 60 mean, this is an area of potential support right here, right? Right about 63. You all right? You all right, A1? I know that was you, man. Looking for this to drift back down. You could find some support here at 63, nice round number, right? Don't find any support there, then we pull back. Maybe we find some at the 50 EMA, and then that, if not there, maybe we find it at this gap fill. XBI, we already talked about. Home builders. So, you know, we got a, what was it, a housing starts number here that wasn't very impressive today. Home builders just drifting lower. Volume starting to taper off a little bit here. You know, we've been talking about watching this for potentially some support here right around 34. The interest rate hikes, you know, obviously do have an impact. So, you know, look, see what I just did right there? This trend line we had drawn, and then we just extend that out, right? And then what was support now becomes resistance, right? Bump back up into that trend line, and it's drifting back down. So anyway, let's look for some support here at around 34 bucks, around where the 200-day moving average is. And you know, the interest rate increase, like we talked about yesterday, you know, that could actually give people incentive to get off their butt and go buy some homes. So I think home builders, you know, I mean, you want to keep an eye on them because I think that's a sector that you probably want to be involved in heading into the spring, right? And maybe there will be some opportunities there to take some swing trades or even maybe longer term hold positions in names that on a pullback in anticipation of spring season coming up. So I do want to keep an eye on home builders. Materials pulling back, right? But still look good. I mean, we're still in a decent uptrend here, right? And look at that. So here we go again, extending out this trend line, right? Yeah, didn't quite tag it. But pulling back, we'll see how it acts here at the 21 EMA. If it breaks below the 21 EMA, we're looking at potential price support, maybe somewhere right around 49 bucks, right? We've got real good price. This was really solid resistance. We'll have the 50 EMA right there. So that could be an area of support, potential bounce spot. Energy, a little bit of a pullback. You know, that WLL caught a downgrade today and actually did all right. I mean, it held up around 12 bucks. So I may wind up regretting selling that. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens with oil. Oil pulls back, WLL will pull back, and then I'll be able to get back in around 10 or 950 or somewhere in that area. Financials we already talked about. Industrials, right? So not real good action on industrials. Honeywell didn't help that cause. There was an upgrade on GE, but you know, I think GE is really coming up into an area of price resistance. If the dollar continues to strengthen, I think that creates a problem for the industrials. We'll see what happens next week, but industrials, along with aerospace defense, you know, those two look kind of the weakest, right? Those two sectors. Let's see, utilities. Almost looking like it's kind of building a little bear flag here, but trying to hold on to that 50 EMA. I'm not real fond of utilities. XLV healthcare. So, this is starting to tighten up. So we got a nice little break over this shorter term trend line. Nice little pop. And now it's consolidating and tightening up right here at the 50 EMA. So, I've been saying for a while that I think, this is the sector to really kind of do some due diligence in and try to find some deep value names for long-term hold or, longer-term swings heading into 2017. And it does look as though, we're tightening up here. We're consolidating. We'll see which way it breaks, but I do like healthcare for next year. Consumer discretionary pulled back, lost to 8 EMA. Looking for support somewhere around 82. It's in this area where we had some real nice resistance. What was resistance? We'll see if this can act as now support. Metals and mining. Slow drift down. We'll see what happens at 31. See if that acts as support if we get a pullback down here into the 29 area. Oil and exploration. Couldn't get back above the 8 EMA. Let's look at retail. And retail broke below the 21 EMA. And now, we talked about this yesterday. What we don't want to see, so we don't want to see a candle come down here, right, and start putting in a lower low, right? So we're kind of getting close to that happening. We'll see what happens next week. See if retail breaks down a little bit. I mean, we're right here at potential price support. If that fails, it could become problematic for retail. So it doesn't really matter to me because I don't play retail anyway. Yeah, KOPN. I'm gonna go into that right now. I'll take a look at it right now. That darn WTI, I can't stop. Yeah, that WTI that was my focus stock for you guys this weekend, right? That was the focus stock. And that had one hell of a move, man. I mean, it was a beautiful setup. We had a beautiful setup. I just got real stingy trying to get my entry on this thing, and it gapped and just kept going, and it just kept grinding higher. It was really pissing me off, but I didn't chase it. So now I've got to watch and see for a pullback. But I mean, it had a really nice run, pierced the upper Bollinger Band. It's primed for a little bit of a pullback. And where I'd really like to get it, is somewhere around 210 or as close to 2 as possible. I'd like to get it right here at the 200-day moving average on a pullback to the 200-day. Good volume. It's a nice. It was the perfect setup. Perfect setup. Nice breakout this week. Loved it. But now watching it for a pullback, and hopefully oil does pull back and take WTI with it. I mean, it has these nice runs, but then it's had these pullbacks too. So, I'd love to get this thing somewhere to around $2, $1.90. Buy it where the CEO was buying it. I think he bought it at $1.94. That's where I'd like to buy it. So you're saying you wanted a $1.50 to a $1.75 area, A1? You always want a better entry than me. I know.
You there? You there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
No, you nailed it around Thanksgiving Day when it was about $1.50, $1.75.
Yeah, but it was the focus stock this weekend of stocks to watch for you guys. I mean, it was my focus stock, just like FSTR, right? I mean, this one, I had a feeling it was going to go, and it definitely went. So, but I'm looking at this as I'm still going to be looking to get involved in this one. So, but let's go to KOPN. We'll take a look at that real quick. KOPN. I'm already building my watch list for next week. I do have some pretty interesting looking setups for next week. So KOPN has been drifting down. This is pretty big volume today for it, big relative volume. And right at the end of the day, this thing, you know, it spiked down to 249, tested this 200 or tested the 50 EMA and then bounced. But, you know, I'm hoping to get, I'd like to see this thing continue to drop. And I'd like to get it as close to $2 as possible. I mean, if it, you know, if it comes down to 210, you know, test the 200-day moving average and test this price, all this congestion right here, I'd be looking to load the boat up in KOPN, right? And I did see today that looks like the Choi Hong, looks like they're doing some grants. You know, this guy just got granted, looks like 50,000 shares. And then, you know, John Fan just got granted, looks like 375,000 shares. So, you know, it's, some of these guys have stepped up and bought some too. This guy looks like granted 60,000 shares. So, you know, that could have had something to do with this little pull. You know, on a pullback to $2.30, maybe, you know, maybe I start to add to my position at 230, and then if it, you know, if it gets down into the $2, close to the $2 range, I take my full position, right? I mean, this is one that I really kind of want to hold. I think maybe next year could be a big year for, you know, we got CES coming up too. That's another thing to think about. We got CES coming up. I think it's January 3rd to the 5th or something like that. You know, so you're going to get some of these smaller companies or some of these companies that have this really cool tech that are going to get some pops off their press releases at CES and their product reveals and all this other stuff. So this could be one that you want to get involved in. I mean, or I will get more involved in prior to CES because they're going to be there presenting their products. So KOPN I like, and then the other one I like in the space is Iman, which is it's Imagine. That's the name of the company. Imagine. So this is a competitor to KOPN, right? And their last quarter sucked, and I think that's why, you know, it basically has been selling off. They missed expectations, but you know, look, it's pulling back to this trend line. Let me get some of this stuff out of here. Right, it's pulling back to this trend line. It is below the 200-day moving average, which I'm not super crazy about. But and not only that, but the 50 just crossed below the 100 EMA, which is another thing I don't like. Right, so I have an alert set at this. I think it's $1.08. What do I have it? Hold on. I think it's $1.85. Right at this candle right here. So I have an alert set there. If it breaks below $1.85, I'm going to see what it's doing. I mean, I'm not in a big hurry to start taking a position in this thing, right? I mean, it could go back and test this $1.25, $1.30 area, maybe even $1.50. Maybe $1.50 it gets really interesting to me. But I think that next year could be a big year heading into 2018 for the AR, VR, virtual reality stuff. And I think they're going to be at CES as well. This company is going to be at CES as well. So I like those two names for that sector. How do I find these charts? Scans. But then, like I've been following KOPN for a while, And I like that space. I like that whole space. And the way I came across KOPN was I started looking at their competitors, their other people within their industry. And I played Iman back here for a little breakout. And it was a pretty decent little trade. And I've been watching it since, right, on a pullback. I mean, this has only got 19.4 million shares in the float. It traded 59,000 shares today, right? It didn't, I mean, it's a low float trader. It doesn't have a big short interest. But, you know, this company starts reporting a profit because they lost 8 cents last quarter. I mean, if they all of a sudden start reporting a profit, you know, this thing's gonna move. Let me see this thing on the weekly. So you look at that trend line right there from 2011 to 2016. It was in a dominant downtrend, right? And we just broke over that downtrend. We broke over the 200-week moving average, pulling back now to this trend line as potential support. This could be a good place for it to bounce right here in this area. But if it fails, then you think, okay, well, maybe it comes down and tests in this 128 area. And where does that put us? That actually puts us at 128, puts us right on top of this trend line again. So it's like a double area of potential support, right? It comes down and it tests this top of this trend line, and it tests 128, which was this low over here. Maybe you get a double bottom bounce. I don't know. I mean, it's just it's one that I am keeping an eye on. All right, so let's see if there's anything going on after hours. That you know, it's Friday. Typically, not a lot of news flow. And I've got some stocks that, like I said, that I'm already kind of putting together my list for next week, but I'm not going to go over those now. I'm just going to hold them until Sunday. I mean, for the most part, though, it was a constructive week, right? Constructive week. We'll see what happens next week. So what do we have a shortened week next week? Or is it a full week of trading? Anybody know? Do we have a full week, or we got a shortened day on Friday? There's going to be nothing going on anyway, right? A lot of people. So this could be a lot like Thanksgiving week coming up. Yeah, I'm asking you. We probably have a shortened day on Friday, but not sure. Let's look. I'll look right now. NYSE. Do. Hey man, I'm doing my market wrap. Let me call you back in like 5 minutes. All right, bye. Let's see. So we got New Year's Day. We got Christmas. Oh, wait a minute. That's 2000. Each market will close early at 1 p.m. on Thursday, December 24th. No, that's 2015. Where are we at here? So probably they mean that for Friday, right? Probably close early, like 1 o'clock. There's going to be nothing going on. This week will be a lot like Thanksgiving week, right? You'll have a lot of pros that are gone. You'll get some small floater stocks that'll start ripping. It'll be an interesting week, or could be an interesting week. And then we'll take a look at, well, actually, let me look right now. We'll see what we got coming up for economic calendar next week. Oh, really? Normal close Friday, off following Monday? Hold on. All right, we get PMI on Monday. We got Janet Yellen speaking Monday. Mortgage applications, existing home sales, i.e. petroleum, GDP, durable goods orders, jobless claims, personal income, new home sales, consumer sentiment, and Baker Hughes on Friday. It actually looks like a full schedule, right? Let's see. Oh no, so NANA. What the hell? I don't want to see that. All right, what do we got? Christmas Day, December 26th. Ah, yeah, okay. Right, so it looks like we're closed Monday. You're right, December 26th. There you go. There you have it. Very good. Peter is right. Very good. Thank you, Peter. Okay. I don't see anything really happening after market unless you guys see anything. Peter, you're bumming me out, bro. You're bumming me out, man. Hopefully, let's try and touch base this weekend, Peter. Why don't you call me? Text me and let me know when we can talk. Okay, good. You did well today. That's what I'm. All right, man. There you go. All right. You guys have a fantastic weekend. And let's see what happens next week. But I don't see any reason to think that we can't get a little Santa Claus rally. I'm still pretty bullish. So good week of consolidation. All right. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you guys either Sunday or next week.